So it's complete from the point of view of you, the requester, the submittals package is complete to allow us to make action as a planning board to decide yea or nay. That's what we need.
So, Mr. Chair, then at the next meeting, just so we're all clear, you'll get this additional information and you'll decide to either go in one direction or the other. If you decide to proceed, will the next step be reviewing the application, make sure it's complete? Or just tell me what's going to happen at the next meeting so we all know what to anticipate.
That's the only three things that I know it's missing at this time from what I've reviewed, from what I've seen from all this information I've received. Unless you know of something that,
The wellhead, petroleum,
Yeah.
and road,
right.
and the three issues we need to have.
Mhm.
So,
And it'd be, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, as the acting chair, I think we have the complete package at that time. Is that the board?
My thought is, Andy.
I can't hear you.
Andy has suggested that there's already been an approved application, but apparently.
No, he's not saying that.
Oh, okay,
Andy didn't say that.
okay.
Can I clarify this so you get it?
Sure.
What I'm saying is that Saban is showing a letter that's 2 years old with a list of,
I'm reviewing information.
right,
from you.
okay. But what happened in between the time of that letter showing violations is Roger corrected those violations, and Jesse Winters, the CEO, has since given him the right to proceed. So those violations are not going to move. There may be others, okay, I'm not saying that. I'm saying those particular ones are moved. He has a right to proceed until the ZBA ruled on one issue specifically, which was right of way. So that's where we stand.
Hey, Andy, you have to wear that mask, please, if you don't mind. Yeah, we've been through this really bad at the beginning. We don't want to go through it again. You have to keep the mask on. I know, it's a pain. Okay, I want to see, how do we get a copy of the, was it a document, you think, Andy, that was submitted by the code enforcement officers? You got a document saying you can operate? Okay, you have a letter from the CEO, enforcement officer, is what I'm asking?
I don't know if it's directly from the CEO or the planning board itself.
It was from the planning board. The application was granted in September. It was appealed.
is this ours?
Yes, that's ours. We needed, Desiree, we got to find that.
Do you have the application that you got last month?
I don't think so. Is it in there, you think?
It's in here.
Okay,
It is September 15th, 2020.
that allows him to operate present.
Yep, so it's, the plain partnership planning board approved the review of this application on September 15th, 2020. And voted unanimously to approve the application by vote of 3-0.
Mhm.
So his site plan from September was approved. This is what was appealed in January for the right of way. And the planning, the ZBA did,
Disapprove.
right, they agreed that the right of way needed to be addressed. They didn't, in their determination, to take it back to the planning board,
No.
or say that he needed to cease and desist.
So he's legal right,
That was,
right now, he's legal from the point of view, there's a letter approved by the planning board to allow him to operate?
No,
That's what she's saying.
I,
no. No. The appeal to the ZBA, the appeal.
No, that's not what she's talking about. We're talking about that letter from the CEO, from the planning board.
and that's what was appealed in January.
Oh, it was appealed.
Yes, and the right of way was the province, correct me if I'm wrong, the right of way was the province that we appealed to.
Yes.
It was actually who owned the two lots if they were
The reason you
contiguous.
submitted a third site plan application, which is what's before you,
Right.
for a proposed use of an auto
Mhm.
repair shop, is he doesn't have approval right now to do it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have submitted a third site plan application for approval of a
I'm
proposed
trying to get
Oh,
use.
around to that, and I understand
There's
that.
been 5 stop work orders issued by the CEO and the town select board. That's not in your purview.
Right.
But the notion that he has a valid permit from this planning board to do anything there in terms of a commercial endeavor is it's been reversed by the ZBA, and the
I'm-
fact that he's submitting an application for new proposed use.
I understand that. I got it. And I told you, since ZBA has kicked it back because of the right-of-way, he should not be operating.
He's fixed the right-of-way problem.
But has anyone approved to allow him to operate in a document where he's come back and asked us for approval, or asked the chief executive officer for approval?
I gotta say that I think this town is running very perilously close to harassing a citizen.
I don't want to do that. I never want to do that.
Well, that's
What we're
what's
trying to
coming.
ask is, so we have the complete information, because we all have been part of this process,
It's-
and we can get this done with.
I do not want to ever be perceived as harassing any citizen of this
I
community.
can understand the completeness
Yeah,
and all those three concrete issues.
right.
From what I've seen so far, Mr. Moreau will address them.
Okay,
He's addressed everything else,
okay,
It's really simple.
and we can proceed along that line. But I
Okay.
do not
So we're not
want to see
doing-
somebody railroaded out of his livelihood.
I understand that. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
And I submitted a letter to you late last week. It's our position that following the zoning board of appeals grant of Mr. Nelligan's appeal, that we are submitting additional materials showing changing circumstances. We were hoping that the board agrees that we are supplementing his May 2020 application, not resubmitting a brand new application that goes through this whole rigmarole again, with sidewalk and public hearing. It's not
Okay.
a new project.
Right.
We have cured the issue that the zoning board of appeals identified.
Right. I hear what you're saying. Yes, ma'am. All right, we beat this one to death tonight. I think we've discussed it enough. So at this time, we're going to table, if it's okay with the board, that somebody has to, you'll have to submit that we table the action on this submittal at this time to the next board meeting, and to be addressed with the action items that the board has requested. Once somebody from the board has to do that.
I motion to table the application.
Okay, who will second?
Second.
I have one question before you close the, and it was just, I understood that you requested to know the width of the gravel out there, and then you just had said later that how he gets from the garage to the road.
That's one and the same thing in reality.
Okay, so you just need the width of the gravel, because the road is actually, the
Yes.
existing gravel is shown on here,
We
where it
just
goes
need the
from.
width.
We don't have it on our drawings. You probably have it, I don't have it.
And what?
The drawing showing that.
Yeah, it's on here.
It's right
There's
here.
these two dashed lines in here, that's where the gravel is.
Okay.
So
Please,
that shows the road.
no, I'm not talking about that end. Coming from the building where you're gonna be working. That
Yeah.
building only, to how it ties back into the road itself. Just,
So
would
this
you
is
outline
gravel
that?
here. So
Would
this
you-
is the end of the road, the 50-foot wide
Right.
right-of-way. And then he's got gravel, just like your driveway coming off the road, going to his garage, and then this one goes to his house.
Would you define that a little better for us,
Okay, I
please?
can make it darker, but
Right.
that gravel comes around to here and
Right.
it goes out to here.
Okay. But we need to have that
You just gotta see
defined.
that dotted line, it's hard to see, but that
Okay.
shows where the gravel is.
Please define it,
Okay,
please.
I just wanted a clarification if I was supposed to give you the width of the road or define where it is.
Well,
Right
the
here.
book defines the width of the road and the depth of it both. It tells us right in the book, in the ordinance.
And it needs to be 15 feet?
It's gotta be so deep too.
Well,
Okay, that's
this
the only question I have.
explains it pretty well.
Yeah. Anything else at this time, please? You made a motion, Mr. Beckwith?
I did make a motion.
And who seconded? He seconded? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carried unanimous. That one's closed for tonight. Let's go on down to schedule the workshop for May the 5th. Now then, this workshop was requested, now you can, you're back. Would you, I think this came from you, didn't it?
Yes,
Garrett, would you go over this with us a little bit,
This is
please?
extremely important because we're not, first of all, our audiences aren't compatible. And,
Can you speak up, Gerard?
We can't, you're hard to
This is
hear.
extremely important because there's been some inconsistencies in our ordinances not being compatible. I had made some complaints with the DEP. Basically, we're not also following a comprehensive plan. And as a rule, we're supposed to apply our comp plan with our subdivision plan and our land use ordinance in any decisions that we make. and we haven't been doing so. So I think it's very important to, as you said, Mr. Chair, I really appreciated that you're going by the book.
Right.
That's important that you go by the vision that the forefathers laid down in this town on how they wanted the town to, its future
Okay.
to look.
So we have a workshop on May the 5th. That's strictly, wait a minute, I'm gonna ask Desiree, please.
No, you could,
Right, to vote to schedule it, to like,
If we'd like to have it.
because workshops are scheduled by the board. So if you vote to schedule it, it's on the calendar already. What I'd like to do, if it's okay with the board, is leave that on, as a particular on the agenda for every month, so that you guys can decide if you want to hold a meeting on the first Wednesday.
Okay.
You know, if you decide that you don't want to, we'll put it canceled on the.
You put canceled on it for that month.
all right, so let's decide if we want to
Do we-
hold one next, for the
I-
first Wednesday.
There is some information that I have, because I went and got the comprehensive plan. I have, it's 170 pages long,
Yeah.
and I've studied it, I've been through it. We do a lot of things in conjunction from the books that I have and what I read in here. This comprehensive plan here is mainly a guide, is all it is.
Yes,
The law is these books.
right.
This is the ordinance, this is the law.
But we have to implement them together.
As closely as possible.
Yes.
They won't always agree,
No, I know.
so just keep that
But
in
that's
mind.
the problem, if our ordinances aren't in conformity.
Right.
Like, for
Understand.
instance, density is defined in the comp plan,
Mhm.
but yet it was taken out of our subdivision laws to not, like, let's say rural residential.
Right.
It says in our comp plan, rural residential,
Well then,
low-density development.
let me ask
Yet
you,
we're putting in 14-lot subdivisions in areas where rural residential, the soils, the reason it's rural residential
Mhm.
is based on soils.
Mhm.
And all we have to do is go by our soil map. If you look, we're putting huge subdivision in areas where the soils.
because the
can't
soil
handle it.
maps are in the comprehensive plan.
Right, and that's another important thing, is that it's so important that we go by those soil maps, particularly when we're dealing with subdivisions.
Right.
Because they can do great damage to town.
Now then, let me say this. This plan is 30 years old, 31 years old. It's probably going to be under
It is under revision.
revision very, very, very shortly.
Here's the irony.
It is.
Here's the irony. If you remember, we had this discussion prior. The irony was, we're going to Southern Maine Planning for guidance. They
Mhm.
were the ones that screwed our ordinance up.
Okay.
And they were the ones that brought it under state mandates.
Well, maybe what we'll do then is make a suggestion to the Board of Selectmen. Maybe we suggest we use somebody else to assist us in the planning
late.
process.
But they already allocated the money.
Well, all they
Can
did
you
is,
open this conversation?
that's an
up?
open but that's just the money set aside in a
Mr. Chairman,
just a minute, in a
I was
group.
I was the head of the comprehensive planning committee,
Mhm.
right up until,
I understand.
COVID started.
I knew that.
So let me explain a couple of things, you know. So we were getting ready to work with Southern Maine Planning for, particularly for the statistics of the town,
Mhm,
not
mhm.
land use.
Mhm.
Because when it came to land use, we were gonna be able to be upfront and tell them what we want, not
Right.
let them tell us. Now, Mr. Gerard brought up a really good point. We have to take a look at the land use zone. I've got a bunch of these maps I'd be happy to give everybody on the
Mhm.
board here. And we have to see whether we change the zone or whether we change the ordinance. And how, you know what I'm getting at?
Yes,
I hear what you're saying, but sometimes it does not.
Well, if you're in a, if on the map it says, let's say, rural residential, and all of a sudden there's a 13-house subdivision that goes up there. It's not rural residential anymore. So the point is that what we have to do is, in the workshop, we have to pick out particular ordinances and look into the comprehensive plan. See which ones need to be tweaked, ordinances, and we can tweak ordinances here. We can
Yes.
have a,
Yes, we
you know,
can.
have a town hearing and,
Right.
and, because that's gonna get us into trouble. If the comprehensive plan is saying almost clearly one thing and the ordinance is saying something else, throw in.
Andy?
I support the idea. I'm just concerned about how we're going to implement it, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
because this issue has come up many times.
Mhm.
Sitting on this board, I often refer to the comprehensive plan,
Mhm.
but like everything else, it's very subject to interpretation.
That's right.
So to avoid us chasing our tails in circles,
Mhm.
I would ask that since you're really concerned with it and knowledgeable about it, bring hard copy that we can address, okay? Here's the ordinance, here's the problem.
'Cause I've
And we
already
can
got-
focus and get something done.
I'd be more-
Otherwise, it breaks down into
Yes.
just,
Definitely, I'd be more than willing to do the work, because I think
All right.
it's needed, especially with the community growing.
Right.
Yeah, we're in an emergency situation in this town because we're having a lot of people come in. And
Right.
we really have to get all the loopholes out of our ordinances and make it clear. Or we're gonna be banging our heads against the wall.
If we,
Right.
yeah, if we start making changes to the ordinances though, let's say we did that real quickly, not real
Well,
quickly.
you can't do it quickly.
Can't
You have
do
to-
it.
No, this is just a reference, is all it is. And this plan is under the process of being rewritten, the comprehensive plan, and all of a sudden, what we may think about doing in our code and ordinances is gonna be in
Well, there
conflict
is
with.
gonna be a new committee
Right,
coming up within the next 6 weeks or so.
okay,
And what we need to do is, part of the workshop, that new comprehensive planning committee should meet with the planning board
okay,
in those workshops and pick out all the areas where they're too vague.
right,
Define them clearly,
right,
so we don't bang our heads against the wall with the ordinances.
Okay.
And we may have to change some ordinances, we may have to change some land use zones.
right.
Define them
Well, as I
clearly
said,
and
Mr.
more
Vice Chair,
simply.
As I was saying, Mr. Vice Chair,
Mhm.
as you pointed out, talking about the wetlands, there's a reason rural residential is rural residential,
Mhm.
because the soils can't handle it.
Mhm.
That's right.
So what's happened is when you have these disingenuous developers come in, and
They don't-
because of our ordinances got deregulated a few years ago, illegally, unfortunately, under state minimums,
Mhm.
with what we have with this influx coming in, we can see our town double or triple in the next year or two. Look what happened in Rangeley, it doubled in 6 months.
But we don't have a
So
lot of
it's very
land
important
in
that
our
we-
town that's actually suitable for large development.
There is, believe it or not.
One is-
If you check, at the end of Fenderson Road, if you look at
Yeah.
the soils map,
Yeah,
the most flattest, least wet places are the high-density zones in town.
Right.
That have the best soils for development. If you look at Fenderson Road, way out in the end, it's a bullseye.
Well,
But if you look at where they're doing all the development in town, it's in rural residential, and it's going against what the soils and the science and what the new comp plan's gonna say, and the old comp, the science didn't change from the 90s to now.
Right.
Yeah.
Science is still gonna be the
Science
same,
is
the soils aren't gonna change. You know?
Well,
okay, Andy,
I think Thelma, are you talking?
Thelma?
a lot of things we have to consider, especially where I live, is right along the river.
Mm-hmm.
And the river goes a long way
Yeah,
through town, and there's things that you can't do there.
shoreland.
right, shoreline, yes,
Yes.
yes,
There's
yes.
things you can't do there.
That's right. Andy?
You know, I think we have to be very, I agree with you completely, I share your concerns. I've heard a lot of scuttlebutt about more developments coming, one of which is sitting on the river. We all learned a pretty bitter lesson from the last subdivision we addressed. And we saw how specific things have to be
Mhm.
to avoid people with deep pockets and lawyers and an endless amount of time from getting around us.
And that's,
And, you know, the problem we encountered there was over and over again, a lack of clarity on what the districts meant.
well, we
You have
gotta
to be
follow
more
the.
There is clarity, it's just unfortunate because that clarity was removed. That clarity was removed.
That has to
It was
clear.
already, basically, we had in our subdivision ordinance, and this is why everyone's knowing I had issues with the about. It was in our subdivision ordinance that said rural residential, 4 homes. That's what was in our subdivision ordinance. Me and Dan Hennessy, former resident of Hussey Road, were looking through our ordinance, and all of a sudden it was gone.
It was gone.
It was gone.
Well,
So we had a clear definition of what should go in rural residential. It was right in our subdivision book, but then it disappeared.
what we gotta do
This
is,
is the problem with transparency. There's one other thing I'd like to bring up. If you remember, the board voted that we wanted our minutes to be, we wanted transparency, and we wanted our minutes to be posted. Desiree has done her job, but it would appear that Mr. Bauer does not want to post the minutes.
Who?
No, that's, I need to get the minutes signed. That's why I didn't realize you needed to sign them. So I have them here to sign.
Okay, so we're gonna start seeing them on the website?
Yep.
Okay, awesome.
Great.
Awesome.
So what I'm saying though is, to help us get through this process and this workshop, Desiree, I think we'll have to vote, we want to have a workshop on May the 5th. I hope we get,
Do we
like
have
he
enough time
said,
to notice it?
huh?
Do we have enough time to do the notice?
Today's the 21st.
Yeah, we have 2 weeks, so I would.
It has to be in the paper
so
next week.
Yeah, normally, we have until Monday noon to
Okay.
get stuff into the shopper guide, so I can, tomorrow I can put something together.
Okay.
And send it to the office.
So we'll have the workshop, it's going to be here.
Yeah, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna round up the ex-members of the comprehensive planning committee if they want to come. No?
You can do what you want to there, I don't care.
I mean, we're all,
I don't-
we're all on the same.
Because they're not going to be on, they might not be on the new comprehensive planning committee. That's up to the board, that's up to the chair.
I can tell you
Alan's
from
gonna take me home?
That's up to the board of selectmen who they want on that committee.
Yeah, but, I don't, yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm just
It's all
telling,
about transparency.
well, I want transparency too, but if someone shows up and they want to start making comments on the comprehensive plan, and they're not going to be on the new committee whenever it's put together, why, I don't need to hear them. That's just my opinion. Now, everybody's got their own opinion on that.
Well, the members that were on the committee with me would all be would love to get involved with taking a look at what the problem is.
But that's up to the board of, remember, that's up to the board of selectmen. That's not up to me or you.
We'll have to wait for the.
We'll have to wait to see what they come up with.
Right, right.
But we can still have this workshop on May the 5th.
They're having trouble filling spots
Yes.
for just about everything.
Okay, but let's wait and see. But during the meantime, everybody needs to get you a copy, because I went into the office, and Dave made me a copy of the comprehensive plan. This is just a copy, 170 pages. And then I have both books, the subdivision and also the ordinance for land and ordinance development.
Yep.
And you've got to have all three,
I got them all. Yep.
and I have all three, and I've been studying. That's why tonight, I brought the book out. You've got to bring the book out when you're deciding
Thank you for
things.
saying that, Mr. Jackson.
Huh?
Thank you for saying that, so.
Desiree,
Where is my
is
copy?
it possible for you to maybe print up 2 or 3 more copies
I will find
for the
it.
people of the comprehensive
She didn't
plan?
do it.
Okay, can you ask David to do that?
No, I went in as Dave myself.
So I've been here 3 times trying to get copies of those books and that plan, 3 times, and I haven't gotten them yet. I keep getting sent back and
You
forth
still don't
between
get-
the
you
2
still haven't
offices,
got
and nobody
copies?
gives me anything.
That's typical.
Yeah.
I got a copy of the comprehensive.
Thank you.
Yeah, Saban wants a copy.
Are we supposed to?
Have you got
have
copies yet? Andy's got copies. I got copies.
That's from you.
Cliff's got copies, so you're the only one. Do you have copies of all the
No.
books?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Most.
What about
I
you?
could use the comp plan.
Comp
I
plan.
could use a
He needs a
comp
comp plan.
I could
I've
use
got
a
an
comp
extra comp plan, I can give it to Gerard.
Yeah, because I think we have to have these before May the 5th.
I agree.
So when we go in there and start talking, we got to be able to talk about what's in
You
the
have
books.
to look at all the books, have them right open in
Yep.
front of you.
Right,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
yes.
I think
It's
I.
much appreciated that you go by the book and by the
Yes.
ordinance.
We're gonna take a vote?
Yeah, we got to, we got to vote. But Mr. Beckwith already made a motion, didn't you, have the May the 5th? He made a motion.
Second.
And you second, Andy. May the 5th, at what time? Wait a minute, before we do that, we did set a time.
6 p.m.
6 p.m.?
May the 5th.
It's still the same time we have our planning board meeting here in this building. So we're going to modify it to 6 p.m. to add that to the motion on May the 5th.
6 P.M.
Okay, all in favor, signify by raising your hand, please. Okay? Now then,
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I have one other thing here before we adjourn the meeting.
I have your answer for executive session.
Okay,
Title I, Chapter 13, Subchapter 1, freedom of access, for executive session. Number 3, procedures for calling executive session. An executive session may be called only by a public recorded vote of 3 of 5 of the members present and voting as such bodies or agencies.
so have to make a motion, has to be voted for, and we can do it tonight?
That's what it sounds like.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So would someone make a motion, we go into executive session for personnel matters?
Can I tell you the correct?
Yeah, the correct one to say.
The correct one to say.
Yeah, listen then.
Executive session, 1 MRSA 4056A, personnel matters.
You want to say that, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I can only hear half of what you said.
Okay.
So it's 1 MRSA 4056A, personnel matters.
Personnel matters.
Okay. I make a motion that we go into an executive session at the end of this meeting for executive session 1 MRSA 4056A for personnel matters.
I'll second it.
Second. All in favor, please signify by raising your
When
hand.
are we gonna do this?
It's unanimous.